Well, a very good morning. Welcome to ET Now. You're watching Market Cafe with me, Kanishka Sarkar and Shreyansi Singh, where we'll get you updates from around the world ahead of today's market session and also share with you the stocks to keep on your radar today. Well, speaking of stocks, the overnight handover from Wall Street seems very positive yet again for the third consecutive day. What are you picking up, Shreyansi?
Well, absolutely. That just about sums it up. When you take a look at this S&P 500, you do have a slim gain coming in there, rising just about 0.2%. That's where that index was at. And Dow Jones as well, that added just about 4 points. Just a little bit of an uptick coming in there, if you can even call it that. Nasdaq Composite, then that's the one that rose 0.5%. It was the third straight positive session for the three major averages. So that's where a little bit of a silver lining is there, because stocks did close slightly higher despite the release of consumer confidence data as well, showing that US consumers' near-term outlook on income, business, job prospects dropped to their lowest reading in 12 years. So that was where some resilience was being seen. Traders, in fact, will also be watching out for February's preliminary durable goods order as well. So that is also something that we're keeping an eye on. Other than that, of course, you do have hopes of softer Trump tariffs, that April 2nd deadline as well. That is looming around the corner. That's also something that we're looking at, but not much of a change, Kanishka, as far as oil prices are concerned then, right?
That is absolutely correct. Well, oil prices were very little changed on Tuesday after Ukraine's President Zelensky agreed to truce with Russia, covering the Black Sea and energy infrastructure. Though crude prices drew support from the prospect of tighter global supply due to threatened US tariffs on countries buying Venezuelan production, Brent crude rose about 3 cents to close at $73 a barrel, whereas the US WTI crude fell 16 cents to settle at $69 per barrel. Now, these moves come as Zelensky said that the truce was effective immediately, but that he would seek more weapons from US President Donald Trump and sanctions against Russia if Moscow broke the deals. Now, the US has reached separate agreements yesterday with Ukraine and Russia to ensure safe navigation in the Black Sea and to implement a ban on the attacks by the two countries on each other's energy facilities, according to several reports. Also, Trump's threats of tariffs against countries importing oil and gas from Venezuela has raised supply concerns, and both benchmarks rose more than 1% on Monday following this announcement. Now, in terms of gold prices, the safe haven demand has been supported amid uncertainty over Trump's tariff plans next week that could potentially boost inflation. Now, spot gold was up 0.3% at $3,020 per ounce, whereas US gold futures settled 0.3% higher at $3,025 per an ounce. Now, gold, which is traditionally seen as a hedge against geopolitical and economic uncertainties, has risen more than 15% this year. And remember, it reached an all-time peak of $3,057 on March 20th.
Well, absolutely. That's something to look at. You do have tariff commentary that has been in the spotlight ever since Trump 2.0 kicked off. But let's kickstart the day then with the top global headlines that we're getting this morning. US consumer confidence has dropped for a fourth straight month in March. The Consumer Votes monthly confidence index of current conditions, in fact, slipped to 92.9, which is a 7.2-point decline. However, the measure for future expectations is even grim, with the index tumbling 9.6 points to 65.2, and that's the lowest reading in 12 years, well below the 80 level that is considered a signal for a recession ahead.
Moving on, in some other news, Chinese auto giant BYD has officially dethroned US EV giant Tesla as the world's leading EV seller. Now, BYD has posted a 29% increase in revenue from the previous year, bolstered by sales of its hybrid vehicles. Meanwhile, BYD chairman and president hailed the rapid development in 2024, stating that BYD became the first automaker globally to reach the milestone of rolling out 10 million new energy vehicles in November.
Moving on, the European Union's Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic met with US President Donald Trump's top trade officials in an attempt of avoiding the steep tariffs on the European Union good, which will be levied from April 2nd. That's the deadline that we're marking when it comes to all of this tariff commentary. Sefcovic, in fact, said that he had substantive talks with the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and other officials as well, although the outcome of the meeting still remains unclear.
Next up, as I mentioned earlier, Russia and Ukraine have reached an agreement to halt military strikes in the Black Sea and on energy infra following negotiations mediated by the United States. These talks were held in Riyadh, marking a significant diplomatic effort. Now let's go across to my colleague Sumita, who's joining us on the phone line to get us more details.
Remember, this was one of the points of discussion ever since talks between the United States and Russia and United States and Ukraine started. Remember, let me just give you a little bit of a backdrop of these talks. Russia had not agreed to a complete ceasefire. They had agreed to a ceasefire with caveats, and this is pretty much in line with what Russia had agreed for. The United States readout now stating that Russia and Ukraine have announced an agreement for a ceasefire at sea, which is to ensure safe navigation, elimination of the use of force, and prevent the use of commercial vessels for military purposes in the Black Sea. It is also said, the readout also says, that the two countries have agreed to develop measures for implementing the earlier agreement, which is to stop strikes against energy and infrastructure. Remember, this was the caveat that was added by the Russian side, that they will stop these strikes against energy and infrastructure. Now, the readout also mentions that an implementation or a mechanism will be worked out by the United States and Russia to ensure that these strikes come to a halt. Now, Ukraine and Russia will also continue to continue working towards achieving a durable and lasting peace, is what the readout also states. Now, the White House is also stating that the U.S. has confirmed that it remains committed to helping achieve the exchange of prisoners of war. So this is a significant development that's coming in. At least, the initial few steps towards perhaps a lasting peace have indeed been taken. This is coming in just.
All right, thanks, Sumita, for getting us the latest there. But time now for a very quick breather on the show. When we come back, we'll get you a roundup of how the Asian markets are faring. So don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to ET Now. You're watching Market Cafe. Now it's time for a quick check of the Asian market. Well, it is a mixed sort of handover for now. The Asian markets opened higher, but Japan's Nikkei is up about 0.5%, while the Topix added 0.39%. Now, South Korea's Kospi climbed in the morning, but is currently down about 0.5%. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index is also about 0.5% up. However, remember, these moves come amid a fairly positive handover from the US. However, as far as the nervousness in the market is concerned, these are on the back of reports that White House's planned tariffs set for April 2nd are expected to be narrow in scope. Now, Trump has also suggested some flexibility for his reciprocal tariffs for the trading partners. Now, as far as the Indian equity market is concerned, it failed to hold on to gains yesterday and ended flat with Nifty at around 23,668 level. As far as the GIFT Nifty is concerned, this morning it shows that the market might open higher at the 23,750 levels. Now, moving on.
Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. It's time now to get you some key commentary coming in from the Finance Minister then, because Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said that the new income tax bill will be taken up for discussion in the monsoon session of the Parliament. In fact, replying to the discussions on the Finance Bill 2025 in the Lok Sabha, you did have the FM say that the new income tax bill, which was introduced in the House on February 13th, is currently being vetted by the Select Committee. In fact, the Select Committee has been mandated to also be submitting its report by the first day of the next session of the Parliament. Let's go across and listen in to what she then had to say.
So, brought during this budget session, but hopefully we'll have it taken up for discussion in this House during the monsoon session. So during this budget session, sir, not only the provisions and also certain reformatory steps taken during the through the finance bill, the rationalization of customs also is a major thing that I'll come to talk about in a minute. So the steps taken for the customs duty reduction are also post elaborate discussion with the stakeholders. So there has been an element of Jan Bhagidari both in the preparation of the new income tax bill and in the larger finance bill itself. The other direct tax reforms, sir, are worth mentioning. We have brought down certain TDS and TCS provisions. We've increased the thresholds so that the deduction of tax starts at a higher threshold rather than a lower. In respect of sale of goods, the requirement of TCS, particularly under Section 206C 1H, is proposed to be done away with. We are completely removing it. Further, considering the difficulties which is faced by the taxpayer, we now propose to allow the benefit of 2 such self-occupied properties without any condition. And that is a major step which will benefit the middle class, because in order to prove that the second house is also under their occupation, they do quite a few of paperwork and diligence has to be kept up. We are now saying you don't even need to do the paperwork. We take it as you stated.
Well, that was the finance minister on the new income tax bill. Now, moving on, well, India's manufacturing story has all the ingredients for global dominance. A booming domestic market, ambitious policies like Make in India and PLI schemes, and a workforce that's both skilled and cost-effective. And yet, here we are in 2025, with manufacturing still contributing just 17% to GDP, far from the 25% target. So what is it that's missing? What's holding us back? Industrialist Jamshed Godrej has a bold take. He says that India needs to stop hiding behind tariff walls and start competing on true merit. He argues that Indian manufacturing is strong enough to withstand lower tariffs because competitiveness, not protectionism, is the real game changer. The challenge is clear. How do we scale up industries like steel and cement and strengthen our supply chains and shift focus to export-led growth? Can India flip the script and use Trump's tariff as an opportunity rather than a hurdle? We caught up with a whole host of experts to decode it. Listen in.
I think what Mr. Jamshed Godrej has said, this would really be, milk and honey as far as the government is concerned, because I think government has been always very keen, ready to reduce tariffs. Who has stood in the way of slashing tariffs is basically the Indian industry, because it's the Indian industry which has been, demanding protection. You would recall in 1991 when the tariffs were slashed and, when the economy was opened up, it was the Bombay Club that was demanding the protection that, we are, it's a nascent industry, it's we need tariff protection, etc., etc. So I think if the industry itself is saying that we are ready to face competition, I'm sure as far as the government is concerned, it will be very happy to do that.
I think the answer is that we should have been ready 30 years ago. When 1991, when we decided to do away with the extreme form of protection with which we had experimented between 1950 and 1991, we opened up, certainly. We brought down our duties to some extent, but it was more of allowing greater imports into India, greater trade, moving items away from the prohibited list, rather than making a conscious effort that we could become a part of integrate into the global economies only when we will become competitive. So I think since then, we have experimented, we have gradually reduced it, but still we do remain high, protecting our industry, both by way of tariff as well as non-tariff barriers. I am one with what Mr. Jamshed Godrej has said.
That the overall point about lowering tariffs and having a mutually beneficial approach is the correct one. We've been talking a lot about China. China is an adversary of the United States, and yet we have a much greater trade relationship with China than we do India. there is a concept of friend sourcing, and India is a friend, and that's what we ought to be moving toward.
All right, then it's time now to get you some important commentary. Then NPCI had launched updated Beam 3.0 app with new features such as bill split, spend analysis, family mode, and even UI changes. Now, this app is going to be available from next week onwards. But what are some of the other apps and features in the pipeline? ETNA's Anjali Palod caught up with CEO NPCI Beam Services Lalita Natraj to learn more about this. Let's go across and listen in to a slice of that conversation.
The simplicity of the app per se, it's a very, very clean interface. It is very intuitive. It tells you what the consumer wants to know and not what we want to push to the consumer. So I think it's just the cleanliness of the interface and the simplicity that is the heart of the app. The other features are all interoperable features of UPI, and you will experience them as a part of our app.
And how soon can we expect the consumers to get access to all of the new features that you've
We've
announced?
already started rolling out the app in a phased manner to the consumers. I think by next Monday, which is probably a week from now, all the consumers should have the app in their hands.
You've also announced two other plugins, which were Beam Vega and Beam Vishwas. Could you help us understand what is new to the market, to the payment ecosystem that these services will bring?
Sure. Beam Vega is actually the merchant plugin, which was introduced by the UPI, NPCI more than a year ago. And it is supposed to be given by the acquiring banks to the merchants so that the consumers can do seamless in-app payments on the merchant apps. So here Beam is playing a platform role. The acquiring banks are giving the plugin, and Beam is just a platform provider. This is a B2B solution which is given in collaboration with the acquiring bank. The other one, like I said, it's not a product, it's at a concept stage, and we are evaluating how the Beam SDK in itself can power the mobile banking apps of the bank. So the mobile banking app remains a front-end channel. When you click on, let's say, a UPI payments in the mobile banking app, Beam gets invoked and the transaction goes through. So the mobile banking app becomes a trusted partner and Beam becomes a back-end technology.
Well, that was the latest on Beam 3.0 app. Moving on, the summer season has officially started, and Godrej Business Head and Executive Vice President Kamal Nandi believes that the summer is going to be harsher this year and the momentum of demand for ACs will continue to grow. Listen in to what he had to say.
So, given the type of temperatures we are already witnessing, we already have witnessed early summer temperatures in February were 40 degree plus. So therefore, we expect even this summer to be a harsher summer. And therefore, demand of AC, I think the momentum of demand will continue. It is growing at about 30%. Last summer, it grew by 60%. We are expecting a 30% growth definitely in the coming summer at an industry level. For us, I think last summer we did very well, and the whole year we did very well. We were 3x of industry. We are expecting to grow at 2x industry next year, basically because of the launches that we have done, and now we have enhanced our portfolio on the premium segment with smarter air conditioners, which I'm sure is going to be liked and preferred by consumers because it addresses 2-3 key issues of consumers. One is, of course, most of the consumers experience that the AC doesn't cool. Actually, and when you go deep dive, you find that the filters are not cleaned, and that's why the AC doesn't cool. And that is something that is very, very common in most of the air conditioners. So therefore, we have introduced the smart feature of alert being sent to your mobile, which will tell the filter needs to be cleaned. So you have to get it done.
In terms of pricing and from the supply perspective, what I understand that because of the compressor input issue, there was a bit of price hike in the AC. What sort of price hike that you have done in, and also as of now, is the player ready to meet the demand in terms of supply? What's your large understanding?
See, the price hike recently has not happened. It has happened in the month of January when they the rupee dollar equation and the copper prices were at its peak. So I think overall most of the brands in the industry have taken a price hike of 2 to 3%. We have also taken that. But right now I don't see any price hike in requirement. Neither I think for the entire summer we will not change any price going forward.
All right, then moving on, whether you're a savvy investor or a business owner looking to trim that tax bill, a few smart moves now can save you big later. Enter tax loss harvesting. In fact, that is a strategy where you turn losses into tax wins by selling underperforming assets to offset your gains. But how does this actually put more money back in your pocket? Let's break it down. Anurag Shah standing by with that analysis.
So till 31st March midnight, there will be a lot of permutation and combination to save tax, and one strategy can be very much helpful, which is loss harvesting. So in loss harvesting strategy, you just have to sell your mutual fund, your stocks, and buy it again. It locks your capital gain. Your capital gain losses can be carry forward. It is applicable for real estate, mutual fund, stocks, and your losses can be carry forward up till 8 years. So how it works? So in equity market, there are 4 types of profits which investor or trader will make. One is from F&O, one is from intraday trading, one is short-term capital gain, and the last one is long-term capital gain. So as per the income tax rule, loss adjustment and carry forward, if during a year, short-term capital loss is there, it can be adjusted against the short-term and long-term capital gain. So any short-term gain or long-term gain will be adjusted against the short-term capital loss. But if there is a long-term loss, it can get adjusted against only long-term capital gain. So during a year, whatever loss you have seen in your long-term capital loss, it will get adjusted against the long-term capital gain only, and the losses can be carry forwarded for 8 years. Similarly, F&O income, F&O losses or F&O gains can get adjusted with it's considered as a business income only. Other than the salary income, F&O losses can be adjusted against the business income. Like somebody is working as a contractual consultant, though his income can be set off against any F&O losses he has occurred during the year. The final one is speculative income, which is intraday profit. So if you're buying shares in morning and selling by afternoon, that income is a speculative income, and that cannot be set off against any term. It can be set off against the speculative profit only, and it can be forwarded for 4 years. So through example, I will tell you how a tax liability of 2.7 lakh can become zero. If somebody is having, it's an example, if somebody is having a portfolio of 60 lakh at the starting of a year, and when markets were high till September 2024, and he made a good gains and booked a profit of 16.25 lakh from his portfolio because markets were high, and in that 16.25 lakh profits, 12 lakh was of short-term capital gain and 4.25 lakh was of profit booked under the long term. So after when we saw in January, in February, markets fall, there were unrealized losses were there. So you just need to sell 15 lakh of shares from your portfolio. So due after this, your total tax due of 2,77,000 will be nil. So 15 lakh of loss will be there. So that 15 lakh of loss will be set off against the 12 lakh of short-term capital gain and 3 lakh of LTCG, and 1.25 lakh is the tax-free limit for long-term capital gain. So by tax harvesting strategy, you can make your tax liability, which was 2.7 lakh rupees, to zero.
Well, those are the strategies you could adopt to plan your taxes this time. Now, with that, it's now time for a very short break. Stay tuned to ET Now for more updates and news on the other side. Welcome back to ET Now. Thanks for staying tuned to us. You're watching Market Cafe with me, Kanishka Sarkar, and Shreyansi Singh. Well, it's now time to look at the stocks to keep on your radar today. My colleague Gaurav is standing by with a list of stocks to watch out today.
Well, yes. First, let's talk about Siemens India, because Siemens will be in focus, and the reason being that NCLT have now approved Siemens arrangement between Siemens and Siemens Energy. With this, energy segment of Siemens will be separated and demerged from the entity, and the share split is going to be 1:1. Other than that, HCL Tech is going to be in focus because now company has launched agnostic AI-powered smart manufacturing solutions for Google Cloud. NCC is also going to be in focus because this company has won yet another order, and the order size is worth 10,800 crores. This is from BSNL. Other than that, BHEL is also going to be in focus because company has extended its technology collaboration agreement with one of the USA peers, and that is the reason why this company is definitely going to be in focus. Granules is yet another company which will be in focus because now board has approved internal restructuring plan for one of their subsidiaries which is situated in USA. This approval is because the board is expecting to reduce the number of legal entities, simplify legal and tax matters, and as a result this will be a smoothing process for the subsidiary company. Lastly, there are a few companies which will be in focus on the back of the board meeting. So first, let's talk about Manappuram Finance. Board meeting is going to happen on 29th of March, where company will be discussing fundraising for FY26. Minda Corp's board meeting is also going to happen on 28th of March, where company is going to consider fundraising for FY26. Other than that, IREDA is also going to be in focus. Yesterday, the board meeting concluded for the company, and the board has approved around 30,000 crores worth of fundraising for FY26, and they have also said that they have raised around 910 crore rupees via privately placed tier 2 bonds in the year. So definitely watching out on all these companies on the back of the news flow that we have received in the morning.
Thanks, Gaurav, for that update coming in. So there you go. That's the list to look at when it comes to stocks to look at bright and early this morning. Time now to also get you the futures and options roundup. In fact, Ansh is standing by with just that. Ansh, over to you.
Well, in the previous session, Nifty touched 2-month high but couldn't hold on to those high level and dropped more than 150 points to close around flat level after advancing for 6 consecutive sessions. If we talk about RSI, then RSI is around 71, which indicates some overbought zone. So yes, we may see some profit booking, but overall trend seems positive here. If we talk about option, then we are seeing very active call writing happening directly at that psychological level of 24,000. So we have good room on upside. Also, we have expiry tomorrow, so we may see some good volatility today and tomorrow. Talking of which, let's talk about rollover as well. And currently, if we talk about Nifty's rollover, then that's around 41% as compared to 3 series average of 45%, which is a bit less. So less participation is seen here, but we still have 2 sessions. So let's hope for some more participation here. Now, if we talk about Nifty Bank, then Nifty Bank also closed in red. Actually, Nifty Bank touched all this year high level, and then it faced some selling pressure around that psychological mark of 52,000. So we need to go back above that 52,000 mark to be on some positive front. If we talk about index future, then here we are seeing some short build-up happening. Also, rollover was around 60.2%. If we talk about index futures, then let's see FII's positioning. In the previous session, we saw FII added around 1,600 contract. At the same time, they covered around 3,200 contracts. So net to net basis, we are seeing actually addition of 4,800 contract, due to which the total long position inched higher from 32.1% to 32.9%, which is this year's high level, indicating they continue to be bullish in the market. If we talk about retail's position, then they have actually added some long by 3,600, but in against that, we are seeing they have added 8,000 short contract as well. So net to net, we are seeing a reduction of around 4,300 contract, due to which the total long position has slipped lower from 56.7% to 55.8%, indicating they are getting a bit bearish in this market. Let's also talk about rollover. If we talk about high rollover, then we are seeing significant rollover happening in Bajaj Finance, Tata Tech, Dr. Reddy's, Adani Total Gas and IGL, whereas a low rollover, less participation is happening in IndusInd Bank, which is also in FNO banned list today. Apart from this, HCL Tech, IIFL Finance, Patanjali Foods and ECC. So keep an eye on the stocks.
Thank you, Ansh, for that F&O snapshot. Now, keeping it with the domestic stock space, we caught up with Vikas Khemani, the founder of Carnelian Asset Management. Sorry, my bad. He spoke about his favorite sectors in the current market scenario, from IT, defense and PSUs to banking and financial services and power. Let's listen in to his views on all these sectors.
Over last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whenever there is a technology transition which has happened, Indian companies have benefited more than actually lost, whether it was Y2K to enterprise, ERP to digitization to cloud migration, everything. If you see, opportunity size has only become bigger and bigger, because fact that there are 3 major drivers of IT sector, and this I'm talking about structurally. There could be 1 year of here and there can be transition, which is right now we are going through, but India's leadership in the IT services space, right? I mean, Microsoft can go and sell Azure, but the lift shift implementation has to be done by the Indian IT services company, right? Same way, so say a constant technology disruption. Second, our market leadership in the space, and thirdly, aging population elsewhere, which will make sure that more and more technology is adopted. So I think all these things are the structural driver of the IT sector, which will remain. Now, using AI, IT some companies will deliver services differently. So to that extent, their cost structure might go down. To that extent, uh, you know. Price deflation might happen, but that has always happened. Every time IT companies have reduced prices and got more volumes. So like I said, we remain positive in the sector, but you have to identify companies which will benefit from this transition. Some companies will suffer from this transition. Some companies will benefit from the transition, and those are the segments and companies one has to identify and invest.
Okay. Now, where do we go from here in terms of some of the good old themes, defense, PSUs? Where does that fit in?
I think, see, again, defense, a lot of cleaning has happened. Still, I feel could happen some more. But again, I would say depends on the name and that depends on the business model. I would not just defense spending is going to increase, is increasing, but it has its own sort of risk reward. So I would always say that look at company specific, and valuation is very, very important. Defense does not mean that you end up paying any valuation, and that's very, very important. So theme remains intact. There's no question on that. Same way, I think within PSU also, again, PSU is not a sector, but PSU, I think you have to look at specific companies. Like, let's say PSU banks, we are quite optimistic about. We have seen a lot of sort of value correction happen, and valuations are quite reasonable, 0.6, 0.7 time book, which we saw similar kind of valuation by the way in 22. And from there, we saw good numbers coming through. So whatever happened at the macro policy level on the monetary side will have positive impact on the growth of these companies. And so that could lead to some bit of re-rating, and there could be good risk reward for PSU banks. So I would say look at the sector, and within that PSU in general basket is doing sort of well from a governance perspective, but then you have to live with the nuance of each sector and business model of the PSU.
Have you identified anything new which we should discuss? Because last time when we spoke about names like Aditya Birla Retail. In this correction, I'm sure you've shopped a lot. जब सेल लगती है जब ही तो माल खरीदते हो भाई.
So I would discuss name, Nikun, but I would say that I think this year, and I continue to believe that banking, we overweight banking and financial services, especially the large banks, some of the NBFCs, like you mentioned, they would outperform this year. Already they are outperforming the broader market. They would outperform this year. They will do very well. And that I think is looking pretty decent. Some of the pharma names looking pretty decent. Within manufacturing, because of this whole, worry about stocks have corrected, and I think so. So I think nothing new per se. The only thing probably I would say that in this market, we have also kind of done a little bit more around the power and electricity side of the business, because I think that's again another structural theme, but that's part of sub theme of manufacturing in some sense. But we think that incrementally India is staring at a power shortage over next 3, 4, 5 years, and the consumption of the electricity is going to go up because of data center, because of infrastructure, metros, malls, office building, residential towers. So as the consumption of the electricity goes up, I think you need to keep pace with the generation and the entire ecosystem. And there, I think a lot of investment, not only in India, globally is likely to happen. And hence, I think that's a one probably segment or sector which I think one should look at, commit some serious amount of. We already have that, but I think some serious amount of we continue to kind of add as and when we get good, interesting opportunity out there.
All right, then moving away from the world of stocks, then, as India and China look to revive ties, they held another round of diplomatic talks. In fact, representatives from both the countries reviewed the situation along the LAC. They also exchanged views on early resumption of cross-border cooperation and exchanges, including on trans-border rivers and Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. Both sides, in fact, also agreed to resume at the earliest direct flight services, which had been stopped after the 2020 Galwan clash. Moving on, then, Asia's largest tulip garden in Srinagar is all set to open its gates to the public from today. It is also ready to showcase a breathtaking display of 1.7 million tulip bulbs this year, which will also be including 2 newly introduced varieties imported from the Netherlands. The garden, in fact, is expected to draw unprecedented crowds this spring.
Moving on, Delhi and several parts of North India reel under heat wave. Temperatures have soared to as high as 37.1 degrees Celsius, over 5 degrees above the normal and highest in the month of March. Meanwhile, IMD predicts temperatures to soar further in the coming days. Next up, following a heartbreaking defeat in the season opener, title holders Kolkata Knight Riders is all set to face Rajasthan Royals in Guwahati today. The hosts will also look to bounce back after losing their previous game to Sunrisers Hyderabad.
Completely timed out on this edition of Market Cafe on ET Now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't go anywhere because the market takes all of the action forward.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.